could you introduce yourself and tell what you do, and you can reveal where you're from if you want, or a little bit about your background.
I am Jackie Hawkins. I'm on the faculty, as you can probably see by the background, at the University of Houston in the College of Education. And I've been on the faculty there for over 30 years. And prior to coming to the United States, I was a teacher of business and economics in a high school in Aberdeen, Scotland. So for those of you, I think it was Alexavon, sorry, Al, that had said that I was Scottish. So you are correct. I am Scottish. And I still sound Scottish, but I also, since lots of Scottish people went to live in Boston, I do sound like I am sometimes from Boston, and other times a lot of Scottish people went to Australia, and so that's a good guess too. And Ireland is also a good guess because we're all Celtic and we all kind of sound a little bit the same. So that's me. I teach at university where I see that Lizette and Maddie, yes, woohoo, go Cougs, you know, are there. I generally teach doctoral students who are working towards a doctorate in educational leadership for special populations. And for me, special populations is any students or young adults and children who experience challenges with the system and with an educational system and with being successful in a system. So everything that my students do is working towards looking at interventions and activities that can help students who have maybe historically not been as successful in academic environments and career environments to be more successful. So we have individuals who study English learners and provide support for that. Black Lives Matter, looking specifically, a lot of them, at Black men and their success in college and careers. Students with disabilities, people with dyslexia, everybody who can be successful, just as successful as anybody else, if we provide the support that it helps people move along. And as one of the reasons, being on CCC's board is something that is near and dear to me, because they do those things exactly to help people along, and we all are the better for it in my view. And the more we can do that, the better. So that's kind of what I have spent a career doing. And with that, you know, I have learned some things that hopefully we can share today. But Kathy, is that like enough for you to be going on with who I am?
Yeah. So yeah. I'm going to turn my camera off and let Bree turn hers on, okay, so she can interview you. And
we can figure out what we're doing.
Yeah.
Normally, guys, you would end up in my office at the University of Houston on a tour at the University of Houston, and this would happen in my office, which is not a huge office, but we've had like 30, 35 of you there at any one time, all chattering away and asking what's going on. So feel free.
Very true. Well, we're very grateful for you joining us today.
Thanks.
So, Miss Jackie, I know you had some things you wanted to mention to students. I will let you speak with them, and then I will ask my questions after. How's that sound?
That sounds like a plan. I like it. Well, I was thinking about this before we came on, and for a few days now, of looking at something. I'm a learning science educator, so I always look for things that will help you remember what it might be that we're talking about. And so today it's going to be about the 3 H's. So 4-H is raising cows to, try and get them to win prizes at the rodeo in your high schools. But 3-H is things that might help you as you make this transition to college, or for Lizette and Maddie, as you keep going in college and going at the University of Houston. And they are habits, and then help seeking. And then the last thing is happiness. So for me, it's very important as you begin this semester, and as a faculty member who's done this for a long time, I am always trying to let students know that at the beginning of a semester, you have to get into some habits, new ways of doing things that are in patterns, P-A-T-T-E-R-N-S, because nobody understands what I'm saying. When I say words with R's in them, it's a challenge. But getting into new habits, and that really means the habit of being organized. So taking all of the syllabi that you get, because for those of you who have been in high school, I'm sure CCC has told you, you do not just get in college what we are doing today like we did in high school, or what we are doing this week. You get what we are doing between now and December. Between now and December is a very long time. And if you're like me, I like putting things off. I am a procrastinator by nature. So I would be putting things off, and then I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, is that here already? Is it already time for that project or that test? So trying to be organized and using a calendar, using the syllabi, and planning out when things are going to happen. So that is, and it may seem crazy, but it's a skill that many of us have never had until we go to college and until we're trying to do this for ourselves. My students, even at the doctoral level, like to have me do everything on the Blackboard calendar. Blackboard is a system like schooling is, or Schoolology, that you can look at. And many times it will tell you, given all of the classes that you're in, you can put what's due and when and everything on there. I would ask you to think, how long is it going to take you to do that thing, and be organized enough to know this is a project. A project might take 2 weeks, maybe a month, and you start it much earlier. This is the being organized. And nowadays, to help me with my own personal procrastination, I put markers into my calendar. So I add dates to my calendar in advance. So if something is due at the end of the month, at the beginning of the month, I have a note in my calendar saying, Jackie, you need to do this. And I also like checking things off my task list. So my tasks are very much check this task, check that task. That's sort of where I think that I want to be. And so I like doing that for myself. So I make it kind of a game. So I put things down, and then I can check them off. And every day that I have that, I'm pretty happy with that. But knowing what is all there and organized, and kind of getting to know how long things are going to take you is something that you probably need to want to do. If you're in a class that's like a 3-hour class every week, so if you have like 3 hours every week of class, you should plan on having like 6 hours for that class, maybe 9, but generally 6, to do your homework and do the studying and do the projects. So if for every 3-hour class, add another 6, and there you go. That's roughly every week. You won't have that for every class every week, but you will have it many weeks. So you're looking at, because this is a full-time job, going to college full-time for 12 credits. Some of you may be 15. That's a full-time job. So you're looking at 40, 50 hours a week of school. The other thing is looking at that from organization, and then this time management kind of piece. That's why I was transitioning you into all of the things and getting them onto calendars and things like that. And you're going to think, my goodness, Jackie, do you need to do this the whole semester? I'm like, yeah, you need to do this the whole semester. And you need to start doing this now so that you can get into the habit of doing it in August and September, so that by the time you get to December, this is definitely a habit and it's a reaction. Habits become automatic, and I need you to get things to be automatic so that in December, when you come to the tests and the big projects that you've got to do, it's not a huge deal to have to do this. Okay, so that's really is this thing with habits. So Brianna, do you have anything, or does anybody want to ask anything about habits, or should we continue along? You're driving this bus, so you tell me.
I like where you're going and I don't want to interrupt. But if students, of course, if you have questions, add them to the chat, add them to the Q&A section at the bottom. Yes, Lizette, you have a question. What's up?
Lizette.
We're anticipating your question. And if anyone else has a question on what she's discussed so far, please add them to the chat or the Q&A.
So is Lizette going to ask her question, or what's going to?
Yes, ma'am. So we're in webinar, so unfortunately our students can't take themselves off mute, but her question is, for a calendar, do you recommend a dry erase or a paper calendar?
I would recommend a paper calendar, something that you can take with you, something that you can hold in your hand. I have multiple versions, which in and of itself is a problem, but never mind. So I have one on my phone, and I have Outlook on my phone. So I have an Outlook calendar where I have things, and it reminds me. I put reminders in there, a week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, those kind of things. I also have paper calendars. I also have lists. I'm here, you know, so here I am, I'm going through. I am old and old-fashioned, so I write things down on paper and then check them off. So either one, but I think whichever one fits for you and whichever one is more portable for you, so that when you remember things, you can either jot it down or record it into your phone, something like that, so that it works for you. That's the fundamental thing to do it. And as somebody else was saying in the chat, getting into the habit of doing that so that it becomes automatic. This is not just something that you'll need for college, it's something you need for career too. So these are skills that are in social emotional learning that have been shown for generations to be things that work. And being organized and on time and on target is helpful. So, okay. Different things. Okay, so Brianna's commenting, okay. And still struggle with the calendar habit. Yes, Alexander, Lizette, that is true. I struggle sometimes with the calendar habit. I even put things in there and then I forget to actually do them, you know, or don't, you know, I give myself jobs and then I you know, just don't do them, but I do something else, you know. So yeah, indeed, it is a challenge. So, okay, Bree, are we good? Okay, I don't see any more.
Yes, ma'am, we are good. There is a question in the Q&A, but it's not related, so I'll ask it at a later time.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. I've got it. The answer to that question is definitely before the deadline for the client. That's the first answer. Because I have doctoral students who say, oh, I saw the deadline was March the 15th. It's now June 15th. Can I still apply? And the answer is no. So but hey, lots of things to think about. Okay. So if we can go on to help seeking, it is sometimes a real challenge. I'll give you a little background. I am Scottish, but I came from a family. I'm the first in my family to go to college. And I grew up in what I know now is poverty, but I didn't know then because I didn't know any different. So I just thought we had what we had, and that was it. And the entire village and the town next door was pretty much the same. Everybody seemed to have one pair of shoes and one or two sets of clothes, and that was it. And I also didn't learn that if there was not much to ask for, the idea of asking was not something that you did. So when I went to college, it became infinitely apparent that I was in one of the lowest income groups. But there at that time, very fortunately, college in Scotland was government supported, and I actually got funding to keep myself in college. So I had a grant and everything was essentially paid for by the government. But I was not good at asking for help at all. And so, and these days, being a college faculty member, I realize that there are many, many support structures. And so some of you will you'll realize that you have to write things for the first time in your life, write things and write kind of big things, projects, and you're like, what do I do with this? Most universities and colleges are going to have a writing support center because they know that it's the number one kind of challenge that many students have, is articulating what they are thinking and getting it down on paper and doing that really well. And so seeking out help from there. And the other thing that I was never good at and that my colleagues knew or my peers knew about was this thing called office hours and instructor support. So help seeking from that. Universities, colleges set up office hours for faculty. I'm required to post 5 hours a week that I am available for students to come to my office, or at this point come online with me on Zoom and discuss their concerns, what's going on, any and all of those things. And students are FERPA protected. So I am not allowed to be divulging what it is that you are telling me is going on, perhaps in your personal life or medical life, except to individuals who need to know so that we can move along to help you. So writing, the faculty member, the library also, I never understood as a student who really never experienced libraries, that there were these people called librarians who could help you find things, could find research for you, could help you with your papers to identify what kind of needed to go in there, could help you find papers that other people have done, people in classes, but also famous people whose topic this is, so they can help you and find. So if you are doing something, a paper in biology, the biggest one that there is, and you need to find out certain things about your biology paper, you can connect with the librarians and ask them for help in a search. And that's their job, is to help you. Their job is to help you. The Writing Center's job is to help you. For any of you who have challenges with math, at U of H, I don't know if Maddie or Lizette has used it, but there's a math center where you can practice math and get tutor support in math. That was another thing I didn't even know happened. I always thought as a freshman student at the university in Aberdeen that tutors cost money. So I was not going to have a tutor because my parents, I knew, couldn't afford that. And I personally didn't have the funds to do that. So I never understood that tutors were free at the university. So there are tutors paid by universities to help students be successful. And you ask, well, why would they pay for that? Well, the bottom line is, when you are successful, the university is successful. Universities are ranked on how many of their students they graduate, so what percentage their students graduate, and how quickly those successful students graduate. So they want to do everything they can to help you academically so that you can move forward. So that is a piece that is really important for you, I think, to know. So libraries, writing, math, and the tutors and the research associates that are. On another part, not necessarily academic, but related to that, most universities are going to have a counseling center, so that it's going to be counseling support. If you're at University of Houston, we have several meetings with a counselor, and right now they are online, available online, that are built into your tuition and fees. They are supports. So they will help with mental health and social type situations that may indeed impact you and what it is you're doing. That can be related to, not just to your own mental health, but to situations for family and work-related situations that are causing you stress in your life. So they're not just exclusive to things about school, but they are for things that are more than school. So as I say, family, professional, career, relationships with others that are causing you a stressful situation. There's also healthcare, generally on most campuses. For many of you, you are paying as part of your tuition and fees for healthcare support. So universities have a healthcare center where students can go and be seen by physicians who will help them. And that goes anywhere. We're at big schools, that's anything from coughs and colds and sore throats to contraception to dental work. So there's a whole variety of things that are available in healthcare. And for those of you who have received support in school from Section 504, so if you have ADHD and have had note-taking support through 504, or have a disability, have a learning disability, physical disability, speech impairment, vision, hearing, many things. There are at all institutions that receive federal funds, which is primarily most places, disability support services, and they have a wide variety of things that they can provide for you to help you. Those things are all help seeking. They all tend to be at the institution, and they are ways of helping you move forward. The biggest deal in them, you have to self-advocate and you have to ask. And that's where it all starts, is each of us making use of what is being offered. And what is being offered 99.9% of the time for free. And it's already included in what you're paying. So you best ask. Okay. Brianna, something else? Do we have somebody?
I'm looking at the questions. They don't pertain right now.
Okay, that's fine.
But so the ones that don't pertain, I'll ask those at the end and kind of just a random altogether.
Okay. The last H, or the third H in this chat here, is happiness. Universities want you to be happy. They want you to have a good time. They want you to be safe, but they do want you to be happy. They want you to be enjoying things. So they create social situations for you. Some of you will already have been online in social situations, and everybody is trying to build relationships and do things and connect students online at this point in time. In the midst of a global pandemic, that is harder. And it is harder when you don't see everybody's faces and all of these kind of things. But, there are lots of things. So looking at, obviously, Lizette and Maddie are at U of H. And I don't know if you are farther ahead or not, but looking at campuses where other CCC students and graduates have gone. So building that network. Building a network of peers who are going to that campus with you, people that you have known. Building a network of people who are in the same content as you, so you can begin to be study buddies in the same classes and or the same degree programs. So that is a peer support and peer happiness and getting together. You're getting together not for an activity maybe to go to the movies, but for an activity that's about studying. And you can do that in the morning and set ones up so that you actually get up in the morning and become peer managers of each other, or maybe ones that in the evening so that you don't do something else like binge watch something on Netflix, which is probably fine, but it isn't fine if you've got a paper due. So looking at peer support groups for fun things to do, but also peer support things for content things to do together. My doctoral students have a WhatsApp group going on. They all like that. They have multiples of them. There's ones who are for my class, ones for my advisees, one for my students who are finishing this semester. So the happiness and the getting together with people is something I think that will ease this process, because whatever question you've got, your other 6 peers have got the same one. And they're all anxious about it too. And misery loves company, there is that, and you will all be happier together and have an easier time of it if you realize that you're not alone in doing this. Everybody has these same kind of things going on. So, happiness and peer supports and working on that now. Some of you may be shy and may not want to do that like the first week or the second week. But it's like jumping into a swimming pool, you gotta jump in and do some of the things. And there'll be some things you won't like, but there will be some things you will, and people that you like, and things that you think, I don't know, I'll give this a chance for a little bit, and then you realize the benefits of it. So I think that's important, but that's going to be very important for you, is building a support structure. And for many of us, this was the first time that we had to do that, because there was a built-in support structure with our families. And here we are launching ourselves off into our own new world, brave new world here, and doing things ourselves. So it would be me. So habits, help seeking, and happy. So, Brianna, I think I'm done.
I think you're done. Thank you for speaking to us and giving us the 3 H's to be successful this school year. Students, I hope you were paying attention. I also hope you took some good notes. Miss Jackie has given us a lot of great resources, whether they be on campus. I know we do have some incoming college freshmen on the call. So hopefully you were able to, again, take those notes, jot down those resources so that when you do get to your campus, you're able to take advantage of them, right? If we have any questions, I know we have a couple in our Q&A. If you want to add your questions while I begin asking the ones that are already there, that would be great. And some of them, Miss Jackie, I'll answer because it's questions that we kind of discussed. So unless you want to answer, the first one is, when is the best time to apply for college?
Before the deadline. Yes, it's always a good thing. You get in there on that time. But Applying for college is earlier rather than later again. I mean, you know, this, and with that, when we look at applications, we are definitely looking thoroughly at what all is there. So you want to put your best foot forward. You want to give yourself time to write your essay if an essay is required. You want to take your time to take the SAT or the ACT if that is required. So all of the things that's required, you want to give yourself time to practice, work on it, and put your best foot forward. And while this is just, most of the time these are on paper and or online that you're submitting things, it's all about you. It is a performance. So it is like performing on a certain day, the deadline, and doing your best performance and putting your best foot forward. You know, so.
Absolutely. I love that you called it a performance. So we've never looked at it that way. We've never deemed it that or termed it that, but I think that's exactly what it is. Your application may be, you know, just the preliminary stuff, right? But your essay might be that performance. Your application is your performance, showing them like, this is why I want to go to your school. This is why you need to admit me. And based on whether you do really well in your performance or whether you're kind of lacking some things will determine your admissions decision. We've been doing a lot of different things, guys, for getting you guys applying to college. She's absolutely right. Of course, first and foremost is before the deadline. But it's better to start sooner rather than later. So we've been having workshops to get you guys started. School starts. So Miss Jackie's right. School is a full-time job. Looking for scholarships, applying for financial aid, applying to schools. That's also in and of itself another full-time job. So we're trying to do things with you guys sooner so that you have time to review your essays well before the deadline and submit all of your documents and applications and things well before the deadline so that you don't have to stress and you can focus on some of your other things. All right?
Because when you're stressed, you don't necessarily do your best work. And you want to do this because if you are spending, it's going to cost you money most of the time to apply, and you know, putting your best foot forward. You know, it's like laundering your clothes before you go out. You go to the
be done
before you go out. Let's go to the bother of doing these things well before we do the submission.
Absolutely. Great question, Stephanie. Another student she had to leave to go to work, but just in case another student has a similar question, do I have to renew my dorm every year?
Yes.
If you want a place to live, I would suggest renewing that dorm. And we always say living on campus is great. You can use your financial aid when you live on campus. All right. When you get that apartment, and kind of try to move up that way, you're of course going to have to pay that rent, you know, the first of every month out of pocket. It won't come from your financial aid. So yes, you'll need to renew your dorm every year. CCC can help you with that. Just let us know what you need. All right.
And that individual, while having to go to work, will maybe be watching this later, so that, you know, because it's a good way of having it recorded so that watching later and being reminded again of what it is. Because sometimes when things are new, you don't necessarily take it all in at the first time, and that's just fine. But having a recording is a great thing. And that's something, Brianna, that a lot of us now as faculty, we are now required at University of Houston to have every class that we teach online recorded and archived so that students who may miss it for some reason or another can see it. So I think there are benefits that have come out of us having to transition to an online format, not the illness and the impact that this has had, but it has made us think differently. And I think that helps people who have work and other commitments that everybody doesn't always think about.
Mm-hmm. And we'll, like she said, we'll be recording this and putting this on our YouTube page. So if you want to kind of look at the video again and jot down those resources, Or if later on in the semester you say, I remember Miss Jackie, she really motivated me to start the school year. I need some more motivation. Go and watch that video on YouTube. We'll send that link. As far as online or classes being recorded, I do want to say, students, that is, of course, not to say that you don't go to the live option of the course. You can ask your questions. You'll be able to just get it live and then refer back to the recording, okay? That's not to say, oh, it's okay, I'll sleep in bed today and then I'll catch the recording tomorrow. Do whatever you need to do to be successful in college, and that's going to include you catching the live instruction of the course as well as maybe referring back to the recording.
Exactly. It's a really good point, Brianna. So many times students who are live with me in class will have questions that come up based on what it was that they heard and just in time. The other thing with looking at getting back to the help seeking part, when we transition perhaps to face-to-face classes, for some of you it will happen now, for others a little later, you can indeed ask your faculty member or your instructor if you can record the class. So some of you will want to record it and listen to it in your car as you are maybe going or on the bus. I know a lot of our students who are from Sugar Land enjoy listening and watching because it's the Wi-Fi bus from UH to Sugar Land, UH Sugar Land. And they watch it again or listen to it again. So it is very helpful, yeah.
Alrighty, our next question, Ms. Jackie, where did you go to college?
Where did I go to college? I went to college in Aberdeen in Scotland. So I thought it was so far away and it's 42 miles. But for me, it was like, wow, you know, yeah. Mm-hmm. I hadn't been like, you know, very far from my home when I was growing up, you know, until I was like 6 or 7. I'd maybe been 3 miles to my great aunt had a farm. So I'd been like 3 miles. And then we had gone to the city at one point when I was a teenager, 42 miles away. I mean, my village has 800 people in it. So everybody knew everybody all the time. To kind of behave yourself, you know?
Yeah, you couldn't get in trouble without mom and dad finding out, I'm sure.
Exactly. You could get in trouble, but they always found out. There was no question. Yeah.
So going off of that, you know, you talked about some of your beginnings. What was it like being that student on campus and kind of realizing that you might have come from a different background and you might not have had as much money as some of the other students? You know, a lot of our students get into college and they might feel that because of those same reasons, they don't belong. How did you kind of combat some of those thoughts and feelings?
It was not, and this is for me, Brianna. This was this was the 1970s. So I went to college a long time ago, before your grandparents were born, or before your parents were born, definitely. And sometimes your you know, I could be your grandma, or you know, it was a different thing. Do I belong? Yes, was a big question. And it was every single day, because they had words that they spoke like tutor, and I thought, oh my God. And then they would know things like recital. I did music at some point. I picked all the wrong things as well. The first year was a disaster, and I didn't have CCC. And I picked the wrong things because I had somebody in high school, a guidance counselor, who told me the things that she had done. So I just was like a duck and followed, you know. That was not a good idea. And so they would say things like recital, and I thought, recital, what is that, you know? Or their clothes were different, or I was like, oh my God. And that was a hard thing on a daily basis for somebody living in a dorm to sort of handle. And so I began to realize that I was doing okay academically, but I probably wasn't doing as well socially. But I also found other people who had a similar background to me. which was fortunate. So one of my dorm mates, was very quiet and also from a smaller town. So those types of things, I found individual people. And I also found there were a couple of people from my hometown were at the university with me. So those were the sort of things that helped me get through some of it. I could have done more had I known what the lexicon was, had I learned the words. Because there are words of the academy, that you're like, all of this stuff about libraries and study halls and all. I thought a study hall was like a hall, like a church hall, not knowing that you actually went there and there were these people called tutors who helped you. So the lexicon of the words and what they mean, and I was always concerned about asking. So that's why for me, help seeking is a big deal. But yeah, the sense of belonging, and then not wanting to disappoint my parents, that was a huge thing. And knowing that I had been given this gift of being able to go to school and somebody paying to make that happen was also something that became very, very real. And we kept getting money as long as we kept going to school and we kept passing, which I know is same as Pell eligibility here, that we need to keep going to school and keep passing so that we have it. We were allowed to change majors and things like that, or change institutions, which I did do. I changed institutions at the end of the first year and went to a business school instead of the university. And I found in Britain, universities study more like fine arts and things like that, and anything to do with economics and accounting, things that here are taught in a university were not necessarily. So they were in a different school. So I switched schools to find something that fitted me better, because I learned that the things that my guidance counselor had guided me to were not the right things for me. Yeah. So, yeah, but sense of belonging is a big deal, and it can be a very lonely place. So knowing people and getting a network and a group, and knowing that this is a thing for our doctoral students as well. They have the question about, do I belong here, Jackie? And the answer is, we won't let you in unless we expect you to get out. Because it is not in our interest to take you in and not support you so that you can get out successfully. So if you keep that in the back of your mind, I wouldn't be here unless they thought I could be successful, because our national rankings depend on how many students graduate and how soon they graduate. So that is a deal for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just kind of want to take a second to touch on some of the things you mentioned. A lot of great things. Ms. Jackie is absolutely right. Know that you belong, right? Like she said, they wouldn't admit you if you didn't belong. That's the whole reason for the admissions process, for acceptances and denials. When you get to your campus, find your home, whether that be an organization on campus, whether that be a group of other students. But the thing is you're going to continue to feel alone if you don't find a group to plug into, okay? You're going to continue to think that you don't belong, or you're going to continue to think that this isn't the place for you if you continue to feel that you're the only person in your shoes. So she found other students that might have come from the same background as her, that might have came even from the same city or village as her. And clearly, if they were all there, that just showed her, okay, if you can do it and you came from where I came from, then I can do it too, right? Schools don't want to admit you and then watch you fail. That's not the point of education. That's not the point of these universities. They're admitting you because they see something in you. Something in your application showed them that they can be successful. They believe in you. They have faith in you. CCC believes in you. We have faith in you. Sometimes it's just, when you're in the thick of things, you don't necessarily see what others see in you. So when that happens, if you're really feeling alone, like she mentioned some of the resources, go talk to someone on campus. If you don't want to talk to a stranger, CCC is here until you graduate with your degree. So feel free to reach out to us. You know, we've known you since you were a sophomore in high school. So we know what you're capable of. We see your potential, and that's why we're following you and we're serving you. All right. Thank you. So our next question comes from Miss Maddie, one of our UH students. She said, what is your best advice for test taking in college?
Test taking in college. Okay. I think, Maddie, one of the things is to know the scope that you're being tested on. So if you are going, if you have a test, if you have one from me, I will only test on the things that you've studied since the last test. You will have other faculty who will put in everything in the test. So if you have a midterm test, a lot of times that's from the beginning of the semester until the midterm, the time halfway, generally speaking. So by October, what have you learned from late August until October? And then if you have a final, you want to ask the scope of the final. You also want to, because it might be that you only have to study the things from the midterm to the final, or it might be that you have to remember things that you learned in August. And that's, that's a different ballgame. And so knowing the scope of what it is. Also asking if they have a study guide for you. One of the things that many faculty will do is give a study guide to everybody in the class and identify, I am going to draw my questions from the following chapters. You also want to, so that gets to scope as well. So the guide as to what things are going to have the highest priority. While they may not give a study guide, they may have a time before the test that they have you ask questions in class. It's important to attend class, right? It's important to attend class, period. But it's really important to attend class before the test occurs so that you can ask about the test and what the focus is going to be, those types of things. And priorities to study, that type of thing. So that gets you to scope. And the other is probably the format that the test is going to be in, because how you study may indeed be different based on what the format is. So some of you are going to really want multiple choice, you think. But in college, multiple choice can be a tricky thing. And so it's none of the above, all of the above, some of the above, A and B only, A and C. Oh my gosh, and you're like, your eyes are pickled, by the time you're finished looking at this. So looking at what the scope is it short answer? Is it going to be an essay? Is it going to be a multiple choice? You will study differently depending on that. So for multiple choice, you will tend to look at more factual things and sometimes be prompted by the question themselves. If you have to write an essay, it would really be a good idea for you to have the key points and be able, once you go in, and ask as well if you're going to get, if you have to write it, ask if when you go in there, if you're going to have to write it, if you are going to get scratch paper so that you can jot down the main points that gives you in your mind an outline for what the test might be for the essay. So you remember the main points, and those are things that help you do that. Also knowing how long and how much time you have to do it will be helpful for you to be able to kind of manage your time and practice that while you're taking the test. So I think that those are some of the things to think about. Those are the things that if I'm giving a test, everybody asks me, what's going to be the scope? What's going to be on it? Do you have a study guide? How long is it going to be? What kind of questions are you going to ask? Are you going to ask essay questions? How long is that going to be? How many pages? Is it going to be double spaced? I mean, these are the standard kind of things. So hopefully that gives it a little bit of an idea.
Absolutely. I think all those students asking those questions, that's exactly how it is, because at the end of the day, your professor is making your test, okay? This isn't necessarily high school where they're teaching to a standardized test that they don't even make. Your professor determines what they want to teach, how they want to teach it, when they want to teach it, and when and how they want to test you, okay? Like we put in the chat, some professors offer a review session. So maybe the class before the test is strictly review, where students can ask questions, get feedback, get information. Other times you have to seek out your professor a little bit more. I know a lot of professors, of course, they love, and maybe Ms. Jackie can kind of attest to this, they love when we come to office hours. Go to office hours and ask your professor, what is the test going to look like? Or bring your old test that you didn't do too well on and say, what did I mess up and how can I do better for the next test? Okay. Advocating for yourself, asking the questions that you have are going to help you be successful. Like she said, depending on what that professor, how that professor tests you, the format of the test might determine how you study. Depending on the subject might also determine how you study. You know, if you're a science major, you might be more with flashcards. If you're math, flashcards might not help, okay? So find what works for you, ask the questions that you need to ask. There's Action Center tutoring, there's tutors, there's professors, there's a network of other students in your class. You're not the only student taking this class. There's hundreds or 30 or whatever the number is, other people that you can reach out to and study with and learn from so that you can be successful in your courses.
And I think, Brianna, that's a really good point that you made about the high school teachers. They are meeting a standard. In college, as you say, you can have a friend who is in the same class with the same name of class, you know, English 1304, with a different faculty member. What's on their test and what they covered in their class can be very different than what you did. And those, so they are not necessarily standardized. So you stay kind of in your lane with what your instructor said and what your peers in your class are doing. Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty. Another one of our students is asking, what was your major in school and kind of, I guess, what made you choose that major? Why did you study that in college?
My major is business, for undergraduate, is business and economics. I have a bachelor's in business administration in Scotland, and that came out here as a 5 major bachelor's degree, bachelor's of business administration. So I can't remember. I mean, there's business, there's economics, there's accounting, there's statistics, and there's one other thing that I never remember. So when it was made into an American degree equivalent, that's what it became. Why did I pick it? I picked it because my mother said that would be a good thing for me to do. That's why I picked it. Then as I finished it, I also got a certificate. I was certified to teach in Britain, secondary economics and business and accounting, sorry. And, but when I was finishing up that degree, I had the opportunity to do teaching practice. So I did a teaching practice in business administration and passed that. And then if you passed it and you passed it at a certain level, you got to pick what you did for your next one. And so I picked for the next one to do a teaching practice with students with disabilities. So I went to what would be here a special school, a school different, no, not mainstream school, not an inclusive school. A school for individuals with disabilities who had physical impairments and physical disabilities and mental retardation. So that intellectual disabilities here. And so that was, yeah, the difference in the language, but physical disabilities and intellectual disabilities. And I very much enjoyed that. And when I came to America, I came here as a young bride of 24 years old. I thought it was young at the time anyway. And come from a village of 800 people to a city of millions seemed like a huge change. And I went to Alief ISD and asked for a job. And they said, what we qualified for? I said, oh, business, economics, and accounting. And they said, oh, we don't teach that here. And I thought, oh, okay. I was amazed because the biggest free enterprise economy in the world, I thought maybe we would do that, but seemingly not. And I now know that you get a half credit in economics, so they probably didn't need it. So I said, what do you need? And they said, we need special ed. And I said, oh, okay. Oh, I like that. Right. Okay. And one of the undergraduate things that I did was instructional IO psychology for business and organizations. And a lot of special ed is IO psychology. And, I got a master's here at University of Houston, then a doctorate. And then I joined the faculty there in 1990, so I have been there for 30 years. And I am kind of living the passion that I have of working with the students. But for those of you who have heard me speak before, the passion for what you do is important, and learning, because you're going to be doing it for a very long time, or you're going to be retooling and learning it. But learning skills that you can apply to almost anything is a good thing to have, because then you can reinvent yourself as you go along. So for those of you who are studying STEM careers, you are studying processes and fixed sets of rules and those kind of things. And you should be able to apply those techniques to anything that you encounter in STEM fields. And similar things for those of you who are doing fine arts and communication, you can apply those. So look at skills that you learn, not necessarily just content, that you can apply to whatever career you want to reinvent yourself for. So I think reinvention is part of the American dream, is innovation and reinvention. So yeah, hopefully that answers.
All right. And I just see one last question in our chat coming from a student that will be an incoming freshman this year. So the transition of not only college to, or high school to college, but face-to-face to online also is definitely something that they're worried about. The question is, with most of us taking online courses at home, how do we avoid getting too comfortable or procrastinating on studying and preparing for courses?
Okay. I think getting back to those habits and setting things up in your calendars, setting time reminders for you, and doing that even though you are at home, and doing it for yourself, not mom, dad, older sister, aunt, uncle, granny telling you to do it, but getting it out of yourself to do that for yourself. Because this is a transition. High school to college isn't just a transition from one place to another. It's a transition from more dependent to more independent. So regardless of where you are, you can become more independent and more responsible for what you want and need to do. So doing that and documenting in a calendar, being organized, and having your checklists, being responsible, is something that you can do irrespective of where you are. Some students always are online and always are at home, while many are on campus. But even there, so it's like learning to put your dish not in the sink, but in the dishwasher. That it's the same thing of learning this transition to being the one responsible for doing all of your homework, setting up deadlines and timelines. That's the part of adulting that many of us as adults still need to practice and learn. And this aging adult for certain is there. I am surely in that same boat.
And I think her advice applies to, all of us, no matter what level we're at. So if you're a college student, you're going to have to find out what works for you. Hopefully, if you're a high school student, you can figure out what works for you now in high school, so that when it really, really matters in college, you have already established these habits, these patterns that we talked about in the beginning of the call, That way it's more automatic. You don't have to necessarily remind yourself, oh yeah, I need to do this. It just becomes second nature. All right.
The other thing too, Brianna, is we have people in our lives, either at the university or college, or our parents, grandparents, that we can ask to help us and keep us on track, and share our calendar with them, a school calendar, not necessarily a social one, but share it and ask them to remind me or ask me the day before, how are you coming along with this? So giving adults permission to help you learn to be an adult, I think is also a good thing. Mm-hmm. So sharing your access to things so that they can indeed help you, I think can be helpful. Mm-hmm. Inviting them in as opposed to being upset when they ask.
Yes, exactly. Inviting them. So if we're doing online this semester, you might be at home. And even though your parents might not have that, college background to help you with your courses or, help you with your homework, maybe they can just simply help by holding you accountable, right? When you connect with other students in your courses and your classes and your sections, they can hold you accountable. Start a group text with the other students in your class so they can say and send you a text and say, hey guys, don't forget, we have this due on Friday. Does anyone want to study together? Use your resources, even people. Sometimes your resource isn't a thing or a place, it's a person. Take advantage of all of those resources because there are endless resources on your college campuses, okay? Even on your high school campus, you just have to ask where they are.
And many of our moms and dads, as I say, I was first in college, and my parents, the first of anybody, and the village and everything. It was like, oh my gosh. And nobody knew what it was. It was this mystery tour that I was on. And it's like, wow. But there were things that they could do to help me if I asked them. And they were successful at being employed and having a job and being responsible in organizations or in church and things like that. So the skills that they have on getting everybody to church on time or those skills are the exact same skills in adulting that we need to learn for college. So while my mom had not been to college, she could do the time of getting 3 kids all to church on time, dressed, fed, etc. She could also, she wrote letters. She was a member of the Women's Voluntary Service. And so she would write letters and do things like this. So she could help with reading what it was that I had written and telling me that this was sometimes rubbish and those types of things. So because our families haven't necessarily been to college and had those experiences, they have skills that they are managing fine throughout their daily lives. And they are getting multiple people to multiple places, all with clothes on, and that's pretty much a big logistics task. So while we may think that they haven't been to college, they are very good at logistics tasks. And college is just one big logistics task. That's fundamentally what it is. So our moms and dads and older siblings and grandparents can help us with those kinds of things, as they understand how to do that, how to get a job, keep a job, what you need to do, how to be on time, how to be prepared, those kind of things they do every single day.
Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, you're using the same skills that you need in college. You're using them in other aspects of your life, right? So if you have a job, you have to be there on time. Same thing with college and your classes. Yeah. If you play a sport, you have to practice. You have to, put in the work initially so that when it comes game time, you're ready to perform. That's the exact same thing with studying after a class so that you're ready for a test. So that we have the skills that we need. We just need to find them. We need to hone them, and then we need to translate them to school or whatever else it is that we're, not doing too well in or need work on, so that we can be successful, not only in the college piece or the school piece or the work piece, but so that it can just all gel together. All right.
Exactly.
Ms. Jackie, if you had one piece of advice, what would you have for our students as they start school in the next week or days or?
Yeah, one piece of advice, find joy in what you are doing. Find joy in what you are doing. And I say find it. Sometimes you have to look for it. But find joy in what you are doing and remind yourself of that joy every single day. And it may be a joy for the future. I'm doing this for my future. I'm doing this for a change in circumstance. I'm doing this because of the people that I'm with. It might be the content that I'm studying. It might be the job market that is. But find joy in what you are doing. And that will help, I think, buoy you up psychologically, but it also motivates you, excuse me, to keep going. So that, and that sounds super simplistic, but, finding joy in it is definitely, to me, half the battle. My most joyful part of all of my work is my interactions with students. That is my single greatest joy as a faculty member. And it has been for 30 years. So it's a huge deal. And to watch you change and grow and have a happy time. And sometimes there are struggles, but to see you surmount those struggles and move forward is an amazing thing. So find joy in what you do. Yeah.
Yes, believe it or not, guys, you are the student is the highlight of our day. It's the highlight of our week. You are why we do what we do, okay? We want to see you all be successful. We've either been successful and we want you to be successful like us, or we learned a lesson and we want you to learn from our lesson instead of learning from your own, okay? So yes, she's absolutely right. Find joy in what you do. Sometimes you're gonna have to look for it pretty hard, but it's there, it's there. And when you find that joy, hold on to it. And remind yourself of it every day, especially on the hard days. You might have to remind yourself multiple times on the hard days. But I think we're going to be successful this year. We have the tools that we need. CCC is literally in your back pocket. Whenever you need us, text us, call us, email us, DM us on Twitter, whatever it is, we are here to help you be successful. Okay? So if we don't have any other questions for Miss Jackie, thank you so very much. I know they can't show you their appreciation, but we really appreciate you coming and speaking with our students. We appreciate you being on our board, believing in our mission, and again, helping us execute that mission of getting our students into and through college.
You are most welcome. It's a very enjoyable day. I wish all of you extremely well. Hope that you, as Brianna and Kathy would say, reach out to CCC. You are never alone in this venture. You always have support, and that's asking. Yeah, letting us know, attending, being with us. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, so much. It's great to zooming you.
Being with you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And yes, our students are in the chat saying thank you, Ms. Hawkins, coming from Kenneth, one of our incoming freshmen at UTPV. He says thank you.
Yes.
So thank you, thank you. Stephanie says thank you, thank you.
I see them. They are all so okay. Well, good luck. Have an enjoyable
Thank
time.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
And if you'll stay on the call, we've got a few things to finish up with.
Yes, please stay on the call. Thank y'all first for joining and listening to Miss Jackie. We really hope that, she spoke to you in some way today, even if it was something minor, even if you only got one thing out of the call today, you got something. Take that, use that, hold on tight to it. It's going to be an interesting semester, an interesting year. So like she said, when you're feeling down, look at our YouTube video and look at her video in particular and kind of get the motivation, the encouragement you need to be successful. Miss Lisette, while you are typing your question, if it's something you want to type to everyone, you can do that. If you want to type to us, you can. We are going to kind of transition into our Kahoot. So we tried it in the beginning. We're going to try that again.
I don't, it's loading, Bree, so I think we're going to have to skip that today.
Okay, we will skip that. We will do that another time, guys. Don't worry, there's plenty of time for a Kahoot, okay? We do want to say thank you so much for everyone who you guys joined this summer, you participated, you engaged well. If you're on this call and you didn't engage too well, that's okay. There's still time to